Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Talk Openly. Um, my name is Jack, and I'm here with my excellent friend, Daniel. I love seeing your smile, Daniel.
Hi,
How are you?
Jack. It's nice to see you too.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and how great that we can come together, in times that feel just so horrible at times. This world that we live in is so hard, and yet we can come together and find communion and solidarity within all of it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty wild out there.
It is really wild out there. Yeah, it it's impacting me today, definitely, as it should, right? Like, I think Buddhism is not about removing our feelings. I think that's like a common misperception. I just recently I've been reading this New Yorker article that's really excellent, but there was one thing where they were interviewing this woman who's a Buddhist, and they made a comment that despite her Buddhism, she wasn't like disengaged. And I was like, yeah, no, of course not. Like, that's not the point.
Yeah.
Like, or no, detached was the word, which
Oh,
I
right.
like, that's what people think, is that we have to become detached from the world and detached from like emotional responses, and that's really not it. That is a like a 180 actually for me.
Right.
So it's been
It's
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's a common sort of misperception. I know I had that. I had that most of my life, right? That was my
Yeah.
understanding as well. Yeah, it's sort of interesting, like the whole idea, even the concept of any type of transcendence, and the way that transcendence is not exclusionary, it's inclusionary, right? So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's common to sort of imagine that you're gonna once you transcend all of this and you become detached, and so no longer the war and the strife and the struggle and the suffering and the sorrow don't even affect you. You're just cool as a cucumber. Everything's okay even though the world's falling apart, right? And that somehow like you're outside of it, right?
Yeah.
And it turns out like no, you're in
Yeah.
it.
You're in
It's
it.
you're with it, right? I'm
Yes.
not suggesting that either one of us has done any type of transcendence, but if we
Right.
were, it would still include all of these things, these emotions, and these difficult situations, and all
Yeah.
of that, right? We're
Yeah.
learning how to live with it. We're learning how to be okay in the midst of it all, right? It reminds me of the saying that was on an old AA hall that I went to, and it was serenity is not freedom from the storm, but peace amid the storm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that
Yeah.
that's so much of what I know that that Dharma practice in general has really helped me to find that type of peace, even though like all kinds of stuff might be happening going on. I'm not out of touch with it or anything, but like I can still sort of be centered and in the middle of all of that. And that somehow that being centeredness, like being centered while all of the crap is going on, being aware of it and being and still remaining engaged. Like there's something quite magical about that, right? And that's like that to me seems to be one of the greatest benefits of our practice.
Yes, that it's like, oh, I can experience this like real range and depth of sadness.
Yeah.
And that I don't want this to be happening, to people anywhere, and that it's just so brutal and awful for so many people right now. And to really feel that pain,
Yeah.
and that, sense of like fellow humanity and wanting people to be free, really
Yeah.
wanting people to be free of suffering, so we don't have to do this shit anymore,
That's right. That's right. It also,
Yeah.
it's interesting, these sort of larger conflicts, world conflicts, or whatever you want to call them. They sort of give us an experience, at least for me, of like seeing, yes, there is this sort of like collective suffering, or this large sort of suffering that happens to many beings all at the same time, right? So it's not just our own personal little sufferings, it's also large group suffering. But at the same time, the other part of it that I can't help but notice is that during times of international strife and conflict, it becomes very clear sort of the causes and conditions of all of that suffering as well, where we're like, oh, right, these like really strong identities and inability, like there's all, I don't know, there's all this stuff where you can look at it and go, well, yeah, right, of course. The natural result is conflict and more suffering because the causes and conditions all remain.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That attachment and of course aversion, um, ignorance,
Lots of ignorance,
lots
lots
of
of
ignorance.
ignorance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, oh, it's just so right there. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, yeah, but that we can be in our feelings, and that's okay. That's actually really important. Um, and I know we're going to talk about jealousy tonight. Jealousy is our big topic tonight. And so that's an emotion that I'm curious about, learning more about how to feel that without following the rabbit hole. And I'm excited to talk about it tonight.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But first I want to hear some updates. I know so I gotta say the stash is looking quite
Huh?
good.
I'm getting used to it. I haven't
Yeah.
every day I wake up and I'm like, huh, is today the day I shave it? And I'm like, no, not yet. It's a weird. It still weirds me out, Like I'm
Yeah.
still like, what is that? But it's kind of fun while it lasts. I'm sure it's temporary, but whatever. I'll have some fun with it
Yeah.
while while I can. Yeah, thanks though.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, stuff's still going on my end. I'm pretty good. I had a really nice experience on Saturday. I came to the temple for an introduction to chaplaincy program. It was the first of a 2-day event that featured a special teacher, Geshe Gendon.
It's great.
Um, and it was like a from like 11 until 4, so like so a decent workshop. And what I really enjoyed about it was the simplicity of it. So even though it was about chaplaincy, he really made it clear. He was like, what we're talking about is being a benefit to others. And so that's all, like chaplaincy is sort of a formal designation that in certain circumstances that you're acting as a chaplain to be a benefit to others. But the same thing happens in our friends, our family, all kinds of people. How do we be beneficial, right? And so it became just not just it became like a really uh, comprehensive dharma talk, right? About try how do you live a virtuous life. And basically it was interesting because from what I could gather, the basic point was, yeah, focus on on yourself, do your own mind training, right? Do all of these practices, and attempt to do the best you can. If you're engaged, right, and you're trying to live a virtuous life, and you're trying to do the best you can, then the results will be beneficial. And so it turned out that it wasn't like a whole lot of like technique. There was some of that too, right? But there wasn't a lot of like, this is how you do it. It was really like, get yourself in order and then go out and help other people, and it'll be just fine. Do the best you can. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
that makes so much sense that, it's really so much just about how, we are internally. And then the other stuff will just fall, it'll just align, it'll fall in
yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was really funny. I had another thing that happened that was related to Geshe Gendon just today that I wanted to share that I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Um, so um, so he's still here in town. I think has already he left just a while ago, or maybe he's about to leave. But anyway, I had gotten a message that my normal darshan appointment with Lama on Saturday wasn't going to be happening because we have a different guest teacher, right? And so I was asked, like, hey, do you want to meet with him tonight or today at like 4 o'clock? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. And so I showed up at the temple, a few minutes in advance, and was hanging around waiting to have darshan with Lama. And then uh, one of our Sangha members walks out and is like, oh, Daniel, what are you doing here? And I said, oh, well, I've got darshan at 4 o'clock. And it was 4 o'clock. And she goes, oh, my gosh, I didn't see you on the list. And I said, well, maybe, I guess I didn't get on the list, but I was asked this morning. So here I am, and she was like, okay, let me go wake him up. And I was like, okay, all right. I don't know I'm not sure what to think here, but okay. And so then she goes into the cottage next door, which is where I thought I was going to be meeting with Lama. And out comes Geshe Gendon. And
Uh-huh.
I was so perplexed. I thought, oh, I didn't realize that I was being offered a darshan with Geshe Gendon.
Yeah.
I thought I was meeting with Lama. So Geshe Gendon and I have a nice darshan. It was really wonderful to speak with him. I couldn't be more pleased. And we said our
Oh.
goodbyes. And then I hop in my car to go pick up my daughter. And I have all these text messages from Lama and
Oh my God.
from Patty, and they're like, "Where are you? How come you're not here? I thought you
Oh
were
my
going to be here at
gosh.
4 o'clock. Are you okay?"
Oh my
And
God.
it turned out that I was supposed, like, I didn't know this, but apparently Darshan with Lama is exactly what was supposed to be happening. It was supposed to be happening over a different place, though, not
Yeah.
at the temple. Anyway, all has been forgiven, so
Yeah.
all is well that ends well. But it was really good practical advice, and I can't help but just, like, I gotta just say this. It's an observation that I've made that the most meaningful advice that I get in darshan, the stuff that turns out to be sort of like that like course corrects me, like adjusts my thinking on things, restores balance, is always really simple.
Yeah.
It's always like, it may be profound, but it's simple,
Yeah.
right? Like it's such a strange feeling to be sitting there, you bring an issue in or problem, whatever, and then to hear a solution that is just simple and is almost sort of like obvious, but it's not obvious to me, is having a good spiritual friend there to sort of like just light the way and be like, look, it's easy. Not, and maybe not easy, it's simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow, what a what a
yeah,
great story.
it was good.
Yeah, and how funny that like it just makes me think that like our teachers are, they're all in this lineage coming all the way down from the Buddha. And so, any of our teachers are going to be sharing the same message, which is that they want us to be free, and here
Yeah.
are ways that you can get to that.
Right. Right.
And so, your meeting with Llama was your meeting with Llama,
Yeah.
like,
Exactly that. I'm sure. Yeah, I think that they would both see the same issue from the same perspective. And
yeah, yeah,
yeah, super good. But I haven't seen Lama in a long time, so I'm hoping to
yeah.
also see him
I hope I
sometime
get to
soon.
see Llama soon too. It was hard not, being able to go down for the meditation retreat.
Yeah,
Um and yeah, Darshan, I think we had to reschedule last time too. So yeah, same for me. It's been quite a
yeah,
while. But I still feel that strong connection there
yeah.
through my training. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
I'm sorry that you had to miss the retreat and all, but you feling okay? You, COVID?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's going on with you? Come on, dish a little
Yeah.
bit.
It seems like the COVID has left the building,
Okay,
which is
good,
great.
good.
It's great. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
for like the last week of it, I was still getting this kind of like wheezing thing where like if I talked for too long, I'd have to go like, like
Oh,
every few minutes, like just kind of
gee.
like a wheeze type thing. But I'm really grateful that that's not happening anymore because
Me
it's
too.
it's not nice
Yeah.
to be around. Like I imagine that some people I was working with were like, is this person like sick? Like still sick, I've been wearing a mask. But yeah, I'm doing I think really well actually. It's my second kind of week of both work and internship for school. And I'm really enjoying it. and and
Nice.
a big part of that is my Dharma practice. It actually, it's the whole thing, right? Like it's the whole thing. So I'm just really putting a lot of effort into intentionally returning to what I'm doing. Um, at every moment that I notice myself come away from that, I'm like, no, buddy, nope, we're not doing that right now. We're doing this. And there was a part of me that was wondering, like, is this some kind of like diversion? Am I kind of like distracting myself from how I'm like really feeling? Like maybe I'm really feeling like bad and awful about like having to come here 5 days a week, and like maybe I
Yeah.
can just like blah it out and like, feel a pity party for myself or something. But I just think that that happens when I'm not focused on what I'm doing. Like, I'm having the pity party and the anger and stress when I'm just thinking about all the things that I could be doing differently.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when I'm doing the things that I'm doing, it's really enjoyable. Even the hard things. And like there's just this um yeah, engagement that I really appreciate. Engagement with my life that I feel grateful to have. And another aspect of that is I'm kind of thinking like, because there's also this other side to it where I was thinking like, oh, like I don't want to just accept everything, like because some things are bad. So I was thinking, okay, so the things that I'm going to accept and say, no, you're doing this right now, are the things that I don't have control over, right? Like I have to have a job. I have to do this internship for school. So just remind yourself, this is what you're doing. Things that maybe like cause harm or something. If I'm experiencing harm, I don't have to say, okay, just like carry on. I can sit with that a little bit and say that sucks or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of like how I'm trying to picture it a little bit. And I don't know if I'm,
Okay.
making much sense because I've been up since very early in the morning. But I'll have more put together thoughts around this next week as I continue the thinking. But
Yeah, well,
yeah,
I mean, there's some discriminating wisdom going on there, right? One thing in the first part of your comment that you were talking about that I couldn't help but notice was that like there's a part of you that's questioning. Like on the one hand, there's a part of you that's doing. You're like, yeah, I accept this, and I'm doing it, and it's actually pretty good if I just keep bringing myself back here, right? And then there's this other part of you that is like, am I somehow like just making a bad situation? Like, am I just like sugarcoating it somehow? Am I BSing myself right now?
am I
Right?
am I
Like,
like am I spiritually bypassing
that's
kind of?
right. That's the
Yeah,
right
yeah,
word. Right.
yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. Because I mean, there has to be a part of us that is sort of actively monitoring that kind of thing as well, right? Because
yeah,
it is easy to do some spiritual bypassing. There's no doubt about it.
yeah,
Right. And only by sort of reflecting on that would you know,
yeah,
right?
yeah, totally. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a good reminder. But like if I was doing this without awareness that that's like a potential problem, then I would probably run into to some spiritual bypassing.
Well, it's
Um,
sort of like good meditation, right? Like so when you're in deep meditation and maybe you're doing everything, quote unquote, right, there is still this active part of the mind that's aware, that's watching the situation, right? That's like aware if you've been distracted or not, and if you can come back. It seems like
vigilance.
it's the same type of wisdom going on there in your life.
Yeah, yeah, that's the quality in shamatha that we want, that or not quality of the mind, but what's the word that Genlam Rinpoche uses? Anyways, vigilance is this,
Yes,
yeah,
that's
this
right.
aspect of the mind that we want to have in shamatha meditation, where we are watching the actual meditation itself. It's kind of meta, like you're
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, but you're being vigilant in your life as well.
yes,
So go,
yes,
go, Jack. You're doing it.
yes, sweet, yay.
Your
I keep doing
training
that.
is turning into good practice.
There we go. Yeah, thanks. I'm gonna receive that compliment and take it as, encouragement to keep going.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. Um, yeah, it feels good. And I've been in my meditation has been interesting. My shamatha, I've received more wisdom from Lama. I'm always receiving wisdom from Lama, but around shamatha in particular, that I really need to work on relaxing rather than this kind of like, uh, I think I've seen shamatha so much as like, I focus on the single pointed aspect of it. And so then I think I need to drill down, like
Yeah.
almost like, like militaristic, like, no, come back,
Yeah.
like, come back, come back. And Lama has really instructed me that, it's more open than that. It's, you need to relax, relax into whatever arises. And yes, be vigilant, but not a drill sergeant. So,
Yeah.
so I've been working with that. Sometimes my whole training is just trying to relax, my whole session.
What are you, give a few pointers.
Well, so I'll have my kind of object of focus. I trade off between, like one session I'll do the image of one of the Buddhas, and then the next session I'll focus on my breath. And when I notice that I've started to go off into thinking, um, what I'll do is I'll just be like, oh, okay, breathe, just I'll really focus on settling my body, and not, there's almost like this narrowing of attention that my mind does when I think that I have to focus, um, that gets really rigid. And so instead of doing that, I just say, okay, I'm relaxing my mind while still coming back to my object. And I think that's really going to be a big part of my life. My life training is learning how to relax,
Yeah.
where other people might have the opposite issue where they have to learn how to focus. Maybe
Yeah.
they're really good at relaxing. And I know maybe you have some things to share about that too, right? Because I know maybe you're really good at relaxing in meditation.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so having that opposite problem. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's weird too how it sort of vacillates between the two. At
Mhm,
least for me,
mhm.
there are meditations where I feel super concentrated, and relaxed, but in many cases it's like super concentrated and there's like this sort of almost like a little tightness around it.
Yeah,
And other times where it's like way super relaxed and not very concentrated.
yeah.
I remember there was some discussion. I may have shared it on here, but I had been talking to Chat GPT about concentration and awareness, I think it was, and I likened it to a ship with an anchor and with sonar. And so, like, the sonar is like this expansive sort of awareness, right? That is
Wow.
like all on. And then the anchor is like what kind of holds you in place. That's your object of concentration. And so, like, it seems to me like being able to relax into that openness is made possible through the concentration.
Yeah.
Though, what helped me a lot? I may have mentioned this before too, but our friend Patty had one time was leading a meditation and was just talking about observing the breath, and she said that what she likes to do is she likes to concentrate on the in breath, right? To really watch it and be mindful of the in breath and then just let the out breath do its thing, like absolutely just like kind of just like Lego, and it'll
Oh,
just take care of itself. And then observe the in breath, and then just let go. It's not like you don't have to pay attention, nothing. It just like let the body just do what it does, which is it's letting go. And I have found that to be a particularly helpful way to do both, to have this sort of concentration that's balanced with this relaxation. So anyway,
that's really interesting.
I found it super helpful. There's all kinds of good advice around using the breath to relax, but that was
Yes.
one of the things that helped me the most.
Thanks for sharing that. And thanks, Patty, if you're listening out there. That's great. It does, yeah, it feels like this natural ebb and flow, like the in feels a little bit more active, whereas the out is just release. So it makes sense that the concentration would pair with the in breath, and then
Yeah,
relaxation with the out. And yeah, how lovely. I'm going to try that. Yeah.
cool.
Excellent.
Report back if you have any findings.
Yeah, will do. Well, we're on the topic of meditation and mind training. So how about we do a little bit of Lojong?
Yeah, I thought you'd never ask, Jack.
Am I blabbing?
No, come on now. Okay, so we're on the RLSG Random Lojong Slogan Generator page, and I'm going to press the button, the magic button.
Woohoo.
Okay.
All right. Number 47. Make the three inseparable. I feel like we might have done this one recently, but yeah, let's check it out. So your practice of Lojong should be wholehearted and complete. In body, speech, and mind, you should be inseparable from Lojong. And that's from Choyam Trungpa, Training the Mind and Cultivating Loving Kindness. So yes,
I can kind of see how, in my own practice, how it may not be wholehearted all the times, right? Sometimes maybe not,
yeah.
like half-hearted, I think that that's for sure true. I'm kind of curious, maybe if you have any thoughts about the completeness of it, right? So, in what sense are we talking about it being complete in body, speech, and mind, right? Like, does it get fragmented where maybe we're, doing mind training in body or in speech, but not in mind, or vice versa? What do you think?
It's a good question. Yeah, maybe so. And yeah, wholehearted and complete, and that, yeah, not abandoning the body, not forgetting about the body, not forgetting about our speech.
Um,
I know for me, like entering Buddhism, I really was focused on the mind, and I didn't think too much about the actions of my body or speech. Those were kind of like, yeah, whatever.
yeah.
I'm a good person in general, so whatever, right? I just want to work on my mind. But yes, that there are so many ways that our body and speech can be used for ill and harm, and so many ways that they can be used for good. And yeah, so that's kind of what I'm seeing, is that
Yes, and
we can't abandon any of them.
right. Well, and it's interesting too because Lojong is mind training,
Yeah.
right? And so then there's some sense that perhaps maybe what's being suggested is that body, speech, and mind really aren't separated,
Right.
right?
Make the three inseparable.
Make the three inseparable. Like that, there's no difference. So like the actions of our body, arise within the mind. The actions of our speech arise within the mind, right? And so like whatever, in all aspects, like it's all still going to be mind training, right? Like that whatever we end up doing, however we talk, if we're gossiping or
Yeah.
slandering others or being divisive or whatever, that will originate still in the mind, right? And the same with the actions of the body. So I think in some sense it's not really wrong to focus on mind training, but it's just important not to forget that the actions of the body and what we say with our, with our words, that they're not separated, right? Like, yeah,
Right. No,
yeah,
that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, thank you for
yeah.
that. Yeah,
Sometimes I got to just like talk it out a little bit.
totally. No, I
But
think
it
that's what
literally just says right there. I mean, it makes all say it make the three inseparable. Okay,
right.
right.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what I love about Lojong too, is that they are such pith instruction that it's fun to kind of, untangle and unravel and see where it plays out in our lives. Look at this gorgeous painting. Does it have a line about, so portrait of two llamas from 1300, and it's so lovely. It's these two llamas just sitting next to each other, and holding, hand mudras, and they just look blissful.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
Yeah, they do. They look satisfied, content, at peace.
yeah,
Yeah,
and radiant.
nice.
Excellent. Oh, thanks.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. That's good
Yeah.
stuff. I'm kind of jealous of those llamas.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us about that. Tell us about that jealousy.
Well, you know what got me thinking about jealousy? It's not like something that I identify as a super prevalent emotion that I struggle with or anything. I certainly have. I've, like the green monster of jealousy has ruled long portions of my life. There's no doubt, and has caused a lot of trouble in the past. I don't see it so much anymore. I mean, there's still issues with it, but not as much as it was in the past. But what got me thinking about this was there were two things, maybe three. Um, the first one was that I do a green Tara practice at the temple once a week, and there's this in the we have in the temple. There's this green Tara shrine room, and there's this little placard that just talks about who green Tara is, what she represents, and whatnot. And and I was looking it over, and it said that she's known for alleviating fear and for protecting us from dangers, right? And the dangers that she protects us from are they're likened to wild animals. I think there's 8 of them. I don't know them all off the top of my head, but there's like whatever, all kinds of animals that she's protecting us from, and they all represent something different. But one of them stood out to me. It was a snake. She protects us from snakes.
Mhm,
And the snake is the snake of jealousy,
mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm.
So that was one little thing where I was like, oh, it might be kind of interesting to talk about, right? There was something there that I don't know, felt a reason like it resonated with me. And then the other thing I've witnessed some jealousy both among humans but also among dogs. So I have this
Yeah.
yeah, so I have this dog, and she and we've been living together, just the two of us, for a while, and so she gets all kinds of love and attention and stuff. And then I just recently moved in with my girlfriend, and she has 2 dogs, right? And they all love each other. The dogs are fine with each other. But but the difference is that now I'm trying to be equanimous and not give too much favoritism, right? I just like love all the dogs as equally as I can. And oh
Mm.
my God, does that make my dog upset? Like you could just see
Really?
it. It hurts. Like if you just look at her when I'm petting the other dogs and giving them attention, like it literally looks like she's in pain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it hurts so bad for her to watch that. And I'm like, oh man, wish I could offer her some of Tara's protection from fear, or rather from jealousy. Yeah, and whatever. I've seen a little bit in kids as well, and like I said, in my own life, I've noticed how destructive jealousy has been to my own mental state and to my relationships with other people. It's
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So anyway, I thought maybe we could talk on it a little bit. Do you have a lot of experience with jealousy?
I do have a lot of experience with jealousy. And yeah, maybe we could break down a little bit what we think jealousy actually is. What spurs this feeling?
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, I certainly have a ton of experience, particularly like around romantic, um
Oh, yeah.
the
Oh,
romantic
yeah.
sphere of life.
Yeah.
I actually have with me, this is hilarious, I forgot that I had this on my desk, the jealousy workbook, and it's a exercises and insights for managing open relationships.
Whoa.
Because my partner and I are in an open relationship, and have been since we met. But it's really hard. It's
Uh,
extremely hard. And yeah, I'm pretty possessive of my partner. And so I've learned a lot about jealousy and where it comes from, like what the origin of it is. And it's, for me, at least, like how it shows up in relationships, um, is that I really want to be seen as special. Like I want to be this kind of, I want to be the precious gem, right,
Yeah.
in this person's life. Um, and when I really think about that, it's it, on just like right under the surface of that is, it's totally absurd, right? Like I see that intellectually, I
Yeah.
can unpack it and be like, bro, like why, for one, why do you need to feel that way?
Yeah.
This is like, society's messaging around like you have to be someone's one and only, and you have to make yourself desirable for them so that you don't lose them. It's like all this like nasty stuff.
Right.
um and and then I think something that's a little bit less culturally based but just kind of human within that is that like we want to be seen as this like unique individual. And it just so, a relationship can so very concretize your identity, right? Because you're like, this person likes me because I'm this, and so that's what I am. You
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and so relationships are a really interesting way to train in the Dharma, because we get to unpack that and see how it's not, there's nothing within it actually. Um, so yeah, I definitely have experience with jealousy and
I was gonna say you're really giving yourself fertile grounds by having an open relationship. When I've thought about it, like I don't think that I'm poly. Like I don't I kind of just don't get that sense. But whenever I've thought about it and like thought about my friends or just people I know and be like, well, how's that working for them? And would that be good for me? Right? I got to ask that question, right? Would this work for me?
yeah,
And one of the several different reasons, but probably at the top of the list is like I just know that I can't hang with that amount of jealousy, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that on the one hand, I want to be that precious gem, but also on the other hand, like I would be totally down to have lots and lots of precious gems of my own.
right, right.
You
You
know,
want
like I'm fine.
yourself,
I'm okay with having many, but I'm not okay with any of them having other pressure. You know what I mean? I want it to be like
totally,
a one to many relationship,
right,
but not,
right.
I don't think that I'm cool with a many to many relationship.
Right. All of
Right.
us want a harem, right? All of
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
want a harem. None of us want the sting of someone else desiring another person other than
That's
us.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. So I can't even, when I even just think about it, I'm like, wow, like I don't think that I could hang with
Yeah.
like because and it's just weird, like it doesn't take much to stir up that feeling of envy. It's interesting, how there's that aspect of it of wanting to be sort of like special. I find that it also, and maybe this is part of the same thing, but it really comes out, jealousy really gets sort of provoked in me when I really like I'm feeling less than somehow, or I'm unsure of my value. For example, in a relationship, it's easier if I feel uncertain about my status in that relationship, then it's more likely that I'm going to be sort of jealous, even of non, like let's say it's a romantic relationship that I'm in. I'll be jealous even of non-romantic relationships that my partner has, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
There's just
Yeah.
some sense of not knowing, not feeling comfortable with myself, feeling maybe like unsure, like am I really desirable, do they
Right.
even like me, there's all these sort of like these questions about me that
Yeah.
show up when they want to be with somebody else.
Right. Yeah. It's the I'm not good enough mind, which is like it's also saying I should be everything.
Yeah.
Like I
Right.
and so it's like this really enormously arrogant thing.
uh,
Like jealous, I really do think jealousy comes from a lot of arrogance where we're like, well, we should be everything, so why do I feel like shit, and why do other people have more than I do? Like I should be the best. It's
Yeah.
like whenever I think about like these big emotions, I always just feel like my inner like baby child,
Yeah.
like
Mm,
toddler, just being like, no, I want to be number
that's right.
one.
Yeah.
I should have
Yeah.
all that stuff, and everyone should always just love me and give me what I want.
Yeah. It's weird, right? Because um even so it's like jealousy of all the sort of emotions that we can feel, including negative ones. It's actually it's a harder emotion to be sort of honest with ourselves and others about, right? Like it's I forget who, I think it was Tubden Chodron. She talks quite a bit about jealousy actually. Um who was like, yeah, if you're angry, you can go and talk to a friend and be like, man, I'm so pissed off at so and so because they blah 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 whatever, and that's a fairly easy thing to share with somebody else, even though it's a disturbing emotion.
Yeah,
But then it's harder actually to say to a friend like, I'm just so jealous, I'm so jealous right now, right? Like
because
that's
it
not
reveals
something
like,
that,
yeah, it reveals
yeah,
the
because
weakness and insecurity that we feel.
that's right. And I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Tubin Children who was talking about this. And she was like, because it's so disgusting, the feeling, you're so mired in this filthy feeling, right?
Yeah.
It's just this
Ooh.
this wallowing in like self-pity and unworthiness and all of that, right? And that it's this like, and that wallowing in self-pity is like it's irresistible somehow, that we like, that we're attracted, like, because it strengthens, it's like me, it strengthens this delusion of this me, even if it's like a sad, pathetic, loser of a me, right?
Yeah,
Right,
totally.
like even that's a power still, yeah, maybe it's negative, but at least there I am, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm being somehow like harmed or put out by this other person
Yeah,
having
right.
what I don't have.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's so interesting. So I'm curious, like, what are some antidotes to this? Because it is such an ugly feeling, and like you said, it's really hard to talk about it. So it's kind of one of these things that can really get like just hidden and
Right.
um so
And
yeah,
it can become our default way of thinking actually, without,
oh, I want to
so
hear more about that. Yeah.
yeah, so because we can sort of like sort of like you just said, it can be sort of deep inside of us. If we continue to let it be and we don't provide an antidote to it, it can become sort of the de facto way that we see everything, is in this critical sort of like, I don't have, sort of jealous, envious point of view, which leads to all kinds of trouble, both within our own minds and in our
Mm-hmm.
relationships with other people, right? In fact, so the whole thing with the green tar thing, so there was this like a prayer or a hymn to tar that was written by the first Dalai Lama, and I think it kind of gets to the point here. So it says, lurking in its dark pit of ignorance, unable to bear the wealth and excellence of others, it swiftly injects them with its cruel poison, the snake of jealousy. Please protect me from this danger, right? So that's asking Tara to protect us from the thing. What is it? We are unable to bear the wealth and excellence of others,
Yeah.
right?
Oh my gosh. Yes. And what like oh, it's such an impoverished mindset, right?
Oh, it's terrible.
And how we engage, yeah, like you were saying, like it becomes this worldview that actually I can't enjoy anything because it
Right,
means that other people are doing well or have been creative or
right.
intelligent. So how could I actually enjoy it?
Yeah,
Gosh,
yeah,
this is really like like I'm coming to recognize like there was a while that I was really living in that place, and I had a bunch of other stuff going on mentally too, but I was just in this sour minded state of like
yeah,
F everyone, like I
yeah,
can't get my shit together and everyone else is like doing well. And like, I
right.
had friends who were like, artists and in grad school and all these things. And I was just like, I hate it,
Yeah,
and it's such a poisonous place. But really, like, so I'm thinking, what is this, the antidote? So this antidote of getting away from the zero, like a zero sum mindset, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
if other people are getting, then that means that I'm not getting. And so then I have to, like dominate or whatever. Um, so I imagine that an antidote to this is like generosity, right? Well, that's one. I'm thinking one is being generous, and two is also gosh, what's the wording that is used? But just really reveling as best as we can. And maybe we have to fake it till we make it, but really reveling in others' good qualities.
That's
And
right.
maybe a good place to start with that, so that we're not like, because I definitely know, like, my mindset when I'm feeling jealous, it's really hard for me to be like, oh, like, okay, I'm just going to turn that around. But
Right.
but maybe if we were thinking about the good qualities of the Buddhas and our teachers first, rather than others, other just like everyday average human beings, that might be a nice way to turn the mind, to say, okay, there's all these good qualities that sentient beings can aspire to and gain. So I'm just gonna like live in that for a while and just bathe
I
my
don't know. That might seem, if I was really in the throes of jealousy, that might feel a little disingenuous.
well, that's the thing. I think sometimes for me, I do have to fake it till I make it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well,
um,
I think that same thought about other people as being sentient beings is helpful, not just because of their good qualities, but also just sort of the reality of it. Like, because jealousy is this terrible exaggeration of like the goodness of something that they have, right? Like it's not actually taking in the full context, because in order to have what another person has, you would have to be that person, right? To fully experience everything that they've got, all their enjoyments and all their everything. You'd have to be them, right?
yeah.
And a lot of times we're just so hyper focused on one little sliver, one little aspect of it, and that's, we were exaggerating, like, oh, if only I had that, then everything would be great. And I think that there's these two ways of thinking about other people as sentient beings that can be kind of helpful. On the one hand, they're in samsara too, right? They are also suffering just like us. And so, like, in that sense, all of, like, yeah, they have some good stuff, right? Some things that bring them pleasure, but those things that, or whatever, happiness, peace, success, whatever you want to call it, like, yeah, they're going to have some measure of that, but they're also living in samsara, right? So they're going to have, and maybe even those things, those conditions, those that bring them happiness or that we're jealous of, those things might be cause causation of stress, right? So, like,
Well,
if
they
we're
are,
jealous
yeah.
of somebody's wealth, right? Well, they are suffering the having wealth,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, that's a its own type of suffering, and we're not thinking about that when we're jealous of it,
Right.
right?
The conventionally good in our world that we're jealous of is suffering.
That's
Because
right.
yeah,
That's
it's
right.
all, we're all going to have to leave it. It's we can't take it with
Exactly.
us, and so it is suffering. And yeah, not I would have to be careful in the moment to not like to not do it in kind of a vindictive way. This like thinking about like, oh well, that person's suffering because
Oh, right.
like
No,
they have
no,
good
no,
stuff.
no,
So
no,
yeah,
no,
they're
no.
they're yeah, they're suffering. Ha ha
No, that
ha.
would that would not be helpful. No, right? We wouldn't want to rejoice in their
Right.
suffering,
No, no, no.
right? The, well, and I think that this is what something that I picked up from. It was interesting. It was there are a number of different teachings. In general, my takeaway from what I've read about the antidote to jealousy is that it's sympathetic joy, right?
Mm,
That's the direct antidote to jealousy. So then there's the question of, well, how do we develop sympathetic joy? And I think there's a number of different ways of thinking about it. But I read this great post by someone I'm not actually familiar with, but their name is Zigar Kongtrul Rinpoche. I've never heard of them actually before, but I saw this Facebook post by them, where what they were talking about is how basically how we can use jealousy as lojong, as mind training,
yeah.
right? That when we notice the arrival rather of jealousy, we can take that as a cue to engage in rejoicing practice.
Yes.
And so what, like what is that rejoicing? What does it look like, right? On the one hand, there's perhaps a little bit of investigation into our own thoughts and feelings around all of this stuff, right? Like some of which we've already been talking about. But then there's also this like the actual act of wishing deeply for like deeply like that, just like we the like yeah, may how do the Brahma Viharas go, right? May all beings have happiness as the cause of happiness, be free of suffering, the cause of suffering, and may they be inseparable from that joyful happiness that is free from suffering. But I think, at least in my mind, I oftentimes kind of just like go through that line without really contemplating it, right? But if we can really practice that, like especially when we notice the arrival of jealousy, and we can really like, I mean, it has to be. I think this is like one of those things where you have to really fake it until you make it in the moment. You have to feel the shift, right? So like when notice the jealousy, and then you say, no, I actually am really happy for them. Look at them. I mean, they had so much good merit or whatever it was, the good situation that they were able to get this, and I'm genuinely happy for them. And then if you notice that you're sort of faking it, then like sitting with it a little bit longer, right? And being like, no, really, actually, I wish that for that. I'm happy for them. I don't need it. What was interesting is that as a result of practicing this type of rejoicing, trying to develop sympathetic joy, it's been said that we get half of the merit that they get that caused
Oh,
it in
wow.
the first place, right? So half of the goodness that came to them, that was, that is in somehow the object or the trigger of our jealousy, we get half the merit from that, right? And you
It
can think,
reminds
well, and you can think like, well, what would that mean? Well, it would mean that if you really could actually be happy for them that they got what they got or are the way they are or whatever, if you can really actually make that flip, that would be a tremendous benefit to
Oh,
yourself,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then there was this other aspect to
It's
it that,
that smart selfishness, right? That the Dalai
that's right,
Lama
that's
talks
right.
about. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But beyond that even, okay, so there's the person that we're jealous of and the thing that we're jealous of. But then so not only can we in that moment of recognizing our jealousy, can we really attempt to develop some sympathetic joy by rejoicing in their fortune and whatever good situation arose for them. But we can even think to ourselves, and I thought this was pretty clever, all of those beings who are not as fortunate as that person, wishing, may they also, right? May the people they are remembering that actually there are many people in my shoes who don't have what that person has, right? And then trying to like wish for them that they would get the benefit of it, right?
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, I
Oh, I
I
love
like these
that.
kinds of practices. I think they're
Yeah.
fantastic.
It really broadens our perspective. Whereas when we're in that state of just a jealous mind wrapped up, it becomes so narrowly focused.
Oh, tiny,
So,
tiny.
so tiny. So I love that's to really broaden the perspective. And it sounds like too what we've been talking about a little bit is that we really, really need to be working on those I'm going to call it preventative antidotes,
Yeah.
right? Where it's every day we're kind of reflecting on these things so that in the moment when we get bit by that snake of jealousy, we can actually, be able to broaden the perspective.
Turn
And
the poison into medicine.
yes, yes. And we're not going to be able to do that without a regular training
That's right.
in these things. So yeah,
You
have
know,
to.
though, like an Aurora Boreal snake, or however you say it, goes all the way around. You know the one I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, yeah. A rubber birth.
However you say it, the
I
snake
don't
eating
know.
the snake, so it's like a
Yeah,
circle. I
yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to bring it back to something that you brought up at the outset, right? The world sometimes feels like right now it feels kind of violent and like there's some conflict, international conflicts going on. Um, And I think that jealousy can be one of those things, like if we're going to work on it, that recognizing our interconnectedness in all of this can be super helpful because, if everybody had more of the things that made them happy, like, the things that made them, that were advantageous, right? The things that brought them peace and goodness, then the world itself would be a better place, right? So when we observe that someone is happy because they have some condition or some characteristic or something that,
Yeah.
that we really like, it's good that they have it. We actually wish that more people had those conditions,
Yes.
because the more that people have these conditions that have good lives that are worth living and causes for happiness and for peace and all of that, the better the entire world is going to be, right? So we can be like really grateful that, that situation is arising for one person, because that's, one less body bag that we have to count.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting way to put it. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
I'm not sure that it makes sense that last little bit, but you get the point.
Well, Daniel, this has been a wonderful conversation. I've learned a lot, and actually, excuse me, COVID. I was able to reflect on things that I haven't thought about in a while in my own experiences with jealousy. And I'm so glad I can look back on that younger me and just, yeah, just remind myself like how much I've grown, and I have so much growing to do, and I can't wait to do it. Like, let's just keep working on it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
darn it, we have this
absolutely.
path where we're doing it.
We're quite fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wanted to quick plug. I know coming up, and I'm not sure if it's every Monday, but look on the Lions Roar calendar. I know there's a new um, uh, like beginner kind of Buddhism. Do you know more about this? Is it every Monday?
Entering the path on Monday nights. I think it's at 7, but you double check the calendar.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that's a really great way that you can learn more about kind of like just intro to Buddhism. You can start to meet some of the Sangha folks and see the beautiful temple.
Yeah.
I really, really recommend just checking it out if you haven't done so already. So that's Mondays at 7. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, hang on. Let's just be, maybe it's at 7. Let's just double check. I'm going to double
Okay,
check the calendar here.
great.
So it is on Mondays at 6:30.
Oh, good catch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Monday, 6:30.
And
Entering.
actually, I don't see it on the calendar for every Monday, but I did read the announcement that it's every Monday. So
Okay.
probably the calendar just needs to get updated.
Yep. Watch the calendar.
Yeah.
And otherwise, really look forward to next week, Daniel. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone listening.
Thank you, Jack. Have a great, peaceful week.
Thanks, you too.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.